So the Acolyte is over. It's been canceled. No season two. And guess what? It's your fault. That's right. It's not the fault of the people who didn't watch the show that apparently have this, huge fandom worked up all over the place to the tune of maybe 10,000 total people, which we'll get to in a moment. But it's your fault because you didn't watch, because you talked about how poor the show was, because you watched it and you were telling people how bad the show was. So it's your fault so that a handful of people aren't going to get another season of this show because, well, you're haters, you're bigots, you're all of these other things. And the case in point, you have, well, several articles that I kind of want to go through to disprove all of this baloney sausage. Of course, coming from that Park Place, we've got John F. Trent writing about this all the way back on the 20th that the Acolyte stands have melted down and blame racist, sexist people after the show is reportedly scrapped. Viewership data was abysmal, and that's being rather kind. These numbers are very disappointing, but this is the conundrum. Will this get willowed? Will this be Heinerscheited? Will this actually cause this to disappear into the wind, to be memory hold? And the reasonable assumption is yes. For a brief time, I think about a day, there was no merchandise available for the Acolyte. It hadn't been pulled. But under some kind of pressure, and who knows for how long, some merchandise came back on the Disney site for, well, purchase if you really wanted to. I think this will reinforce exactly how much interest there is in this show because if they only sell 10,000 t-shirts, there really weren't that many fans. And the reason I bring up that number 10,000 is because according to the petition over here at change.org, that's all the interest they could garner. And to be fair, we've helped publicize it to get these numbers up because as you can see, 8,694 people actually signed up today, which for you, as you're watching this video, would have been yesterday. But there the number is. And I don't think anybody else would have been aware of this because there weren't this many signatures yesterday, just a couple hundred. Now, we'll see where this petition goes eventually, but I have no belief that this is going to get, well beyond the 15,000 that is potentially the next goal here. There's not that much support for this, so stop pretending nobody's buying. Now, let's jump into some data because data drives all on my channel. We want to know what, where, when, why, and how, and what precedents were set to figure out whether or not something's going to be willowed. So, of course, what do you use? Well, you use Willow. That's right. So, over here on Reddit, you can see this show was considerably less than The Acolyte. It was only $105 million to produce and was one of the least viewed shows on Disney Plus. Now, do you know what else one of the least viewed shows on Disney Plus is? Well, you would guess it. The Acolyte, which actually fell out of the top 10 for most of its run on Disney Plus. So let's take a look at this article coming from, Parrot Analytics, telling us just about what they think about, well, how well a TV series is doing. So this is the actual number that came along with Willow. 6.1 times. The difference from market average is good. Yet, is that good enough? Because if people are making decisions based on Parrot Analytics, and you can find videos on my channel that talk about them, you'll know that this is just a hope and a dream. It's conversation online about a given thing. It's interactions on YouTube and X and all of these other social media platforms, including the barely participatory threads and things like that. This doesn't give you a whole lot of demand. This has an 8.6% of all shows in this market have this level of demand. That's not very good. They say it's good, but what is really good? Because it doesn't come out in the wash. When you look at the audience ratings, you have shill sites such as the Mary Sue saying, don't let the audience ratings for one of Disney Plus's top shows fool you. The top show for who? The critics? Because those are the only people that found any interest in this, Rachel Leishman. This is all the way back in December of 2022, December 14th specifically. You can still go find this article and listen to this ridiculousness. But apparently on Rotten Tomatoes, This actually was scoring an 84% rating from critics and a 26% score from the audience. Now, not a lot of people watch this. So you can tell that the audience just wasn't super thrilled with this show. The ones that were watching it weren't happy with it. And that's kind of a theme here when it comes to these terrible Disney Plus shows that Disney keeps pumping out to no audience. They don't know who their audience is. They're listening to some nonsense that's basically leading them that direction, on top of the fact that they're being driven that direction by the overlords that, control the board of directors and, of course, the CEO. This all funnels down into a company that's now entirely lost. And whether or not you have the story group inside of Lucasfilm itself, which I think may or may not have been removed. I don't have any concrete proof. Some people have said it's gone. Some people said it's still there. I don't. I don't know, and I don't care. But I know that Story Matters is still around inside of Disney, and they're the ones that got you Tiana's Bayou Adventure and all the other bad ideas that basically have led fans to revolt and walk away and never return. Is that really what you want to do, Disney? Is alienate generations of people who have families, not the audience you seem to be targeting, but the ones who have children that are willing to bring them to your parks and, well, have them experience your films and television shows. And you're just driving them away because you're basically not connecting with the American family anymore. Because let's face it, you have no Americana left in you. And that's a real problem. And I think that a lot of Americans are finding you very un American, which is a weird thing to say about Disney. But as we move away from Rachel Leichman's opinion, which is interesting, let's take a look at something that our friends at Bounding Into Comics talked about. You see, this particular show, when again, I'm still referring to this Willow television program, it never ranked on the Nielsen top 10 for original programs back when there was probably less competition. And there were a lot of things that, well, beat it out, including Crime Scene, The Texas Killing Fields. But it's really strange in that the last episode uh, in the series uh, raked in less than 349 million views. This was not good. And it's a show that I think Disney did a disservice to Willow with. There's not going to be a whole lot of love coming in for this show anymore. And as you can see here, it didn't even do very well on IMDb, where it was a 5.6 out of 10. And look, nobody in their right mind is rating this a 10, and yet 7,000 people did. So if you do what you should do in cases like this, you remove the high score and the bottom score, and somewhere in the middle is the truth, which is why you're looking at a 6.1 over a median of 7. Well, we'll see. Anyway, so we had those articles obviously coming in from, well, early on. This was March of 2023 as we get farther and farther away from this, to the point where it was just memory hold. And look, there's no arguing here. Coming to us from cosmicbook.news, Willow ratings are the worst for Disney Plus. It's inarguable. You're seeing these numbers that basically say that according to Samba TV, now mind you, different measuring than Nielsen, but according to Samba TV, 481,000 households watched Willow in its first 5 days of release. Now, that's 2 episodes at once. One of the things Disney tried to do was to fool you into thinking the shows were more popular. The same thing happened with The Bear when it got a record number of viewership since they dropped it all at once on Hulu. And when that was revealed, they really kind of exposed the game. Disney is really, really in desperate situation when it comes to Disney Plus, but that's not the subject of this video. We're going to get back to Star Wars. That's right. From TechSpot, Star Wars The Acolyte has been canceled after 1 season, disappointing the 50 people who liked it. Now, I have to tell you, this was brilliantly written by Rob over there, and I think that he kind of nails the sentiment behind the entire community, especially when it comes to Star Wars. We're basically all in a position of going, who cares? And frankly, can't find anybody. We're going to check out the fact that the Acolyte, well, has corroborating data with Nielsen in their top 10 chart. Now, why would that be? Well, I did a video recently, you can find right up there, that talks specifically about the fact that Disney uses Nielsen's numbers. And how do I know that? Because it's built into Disney Plus. And how can you find that out? Well, you just go into your account settings and find, somewhere in there in the menus that you're presented, the fact that you by default already have the Nielsen numbers turned on. So they're collecting data. on a lot of people who are just plain unaware and would probably fight tooth and nail to tell me that I'm wrong about the Nielsen data being accurate. Well, we know it is. How do I know this? Well, not only did we find out that it's by default active, but we also found out that, well, Disney corroborated the numbers. Surprise, surprise. They're Nielsen's numbers. And finally, we have the fact that this is a ratings disaster. This is Spencer's article from all the way back in July on the 23rd, and it just never kind of stayed on the chart. In fact, just 3 weeks in, and when we get the fourth week, it's gone. It doesn't come back again until the very final episode, which I think was watched multiple times just to be mocked, which probably artificially kicked the view count up. But case in point, though, this article goes on to break down just how bad it was, and boy, was it bad. When you look at this particular chart coming from the June 23rd location here, from the 17th to the 23rd. You can see here, uh, where's Acolyte? It's not there. Why isn't it there? Well, because nobody was interested anymore. Still, the number of minutes watched every single week really wouldn't have mattered much. And to be fair, the week that it finally lifted itself out of the gutter in its final episode was a very low viewed week in streaming as far as normal weeks go, which is why it ultimately got up to, I think, 334 or 343, something like that, million minutes, which wouldn't have been competition at any other time. Again, this is really, really a tale of a terrible show. So if you're trying to get Disney to bring something back, well, you should have thought of that before. You should have watched the show in order to elevate these numbers to make it seem like it would have been something that could have helped them. But what's the real problem here for Disney is the numbers keep tailing, and that's not going to change anytime soon. I mean, obviously, even Jedi Temple Archives here has a bunch of stuff that just says this was bad. They got back onto the streaming charts with their last episodes, and the numbers are abysmal. You're going to hear that word a lot when it comes to this particular show. Oh, I was wrong. It was 335 million. The finale was about 47 minutes long if you count the credits, and most people don't watch that anymore. So that just gives you an idea how bad this particular episode was. And as you can see, these are the finales for both Star Wars and Marvel series and millions, and they did a great work on this infographic. Let's see if we can blow it up. Boom. You see here, even Moon Knight did better, right? Where are we at? Acolyte, the bottom, Miss Marvel. As we continue to go through this, tell me, what do you see here? Right? You see failure, 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 failure. Um, it just keeps tanking. I mean, Miss Marvel was better than this, and it was one of the least viewed programs ever. Now, mind you, I don't see Willow on here because there's no way they'd put it on this chart. But Lucasfilm, Marvel, they're not doing so hot, no matter what. And after Mandalorian, there just isn't a lot to love anymore. Moving on, of course, as it enlarges one more time, we're going to take a look at this finally. The article that says it all. They're melting down. And look, the show got canceled because nobody watched it. I've said that 4 or 5 times already. You got 335 million minutes. It was less than the 2-episode premiere, which again, they cheated, 2-episode premiere, so they could get all those views all at once. And it had the least minutes watched of any live action Star Wars finale on Disney Plus. And again, it says it all. 335 million minutes, 8 episodes in total. You would think that even, that there'd be some minutes of view time on the previous episodes. Perhaps the way it's divided out in Nielsen that doesn't show those other episodes, but this is just ridiculous. So when you look at it in terms of reviews, you didn't have nearly as many people engaged. You had 26,000 reviews on the first episode and 11,000 on the last one. It lost half the interest at least. In fact, it could be argued it lost, less. It got down to about 15% of the premiere, if you want to add it all together, I believe. Unweighted, the mean is 3.7 over on IMDb, and they weight it rather heavily. So Following this report that the show was scrapped, numerous stands took to social media to share their outrage while blaming individuals like me and you, probably. Uh, they accuse of being racist and sexist because we didn't like a program. No, there's a lot there to push back on. You don't even have to get into the identitarianism and the forced narrative stuff that they put in place on this. And they say some very unkind things, including people that don't have a single brain cell. Well, you lack critical thinking if you think this is why the show is basically canceled and not renewed. Businesses are in business to make money, and if you are so enlightened, why didn't more enlightened people watch the show? See, doesn't make sense. But yeah, here's this and that and the other thing. Okay, now I'm going to read some of these, I guess. So, and another seemingly believes that the show had incredible viewership. By whose standard? Despite the opposite being the case, of course. The person wrote, I need to hear it from Star Wars themselves and they need to explain why they're canceling the only show with a predominantly, and this is the problem, non-white queer cast that had incredible viewership from audiences that would never have tuned into Star Wars previously. Well, you're not a big enough audience. If that's the only thing you have is your identitarian identity, if that's the only thing you have in your life, that defines your personality and your very being, right? Which is a shame if that's it. I don't think any of you are that shallow if you happen to fall into this particular line of thinking, but maybe you are. You should probably evaluate that if that's the way that you think. But um, nobody watched it, and nobody that would identify like you. Like nobody would watch. It doesn't have to do with the certain flavor of your palate that you exist in, that you post little flags of in your bio, on your social media platform. It None of that matters. It's whether or not something's viewed, and nothing was viewed. That can't be argued. It just can't. Another person wrote, also, this just fuels the toxic side of fandom. How? Because we point out with real data just how poor this show was received, how these enormous amounts of fans and this modern audience that doesn't exist, how you supported this show. They didn't even bother to produce real merchandise out there because they knew this thing was going to be a mess. And you remember, Leslie Headland told you all, and told me too, that if this show failed, it was on her. Yeah, it wasn't on us. It wasn't at the people that Amanda Stenberg actually targeted. It wasn't on anybody, and frankly, I have a feeling that it's just on the people who didn't watch it. I watched it. Yeah, so there you go. Was it a good show? No. They couldn't even keep the characters together in the same scene at times. They had no idea what their motivations were. Many of those people couldn't act, especially Leslie Headland's wife. But we'll set all that aside because I'm not being mean to her. She tried and it didn't work. They just don't understand. And again, the last thing they say here is this is not a W for the community. Okay, what community? Right? This fractional little bit of people that want Star Wars their own way, or the people who grew up loving Star Wars from the very first film in 1977 through the rest of their lives, brought their kids and grandkids to this property. Are those the people that are not part of your community? Maybe not, but they're the biggest audience out there, and Disney's actively ignoring them. And I think they probably learned their lesson at this point, but hey, you can push back at me all you want. It's not going to bother me one bit. All I know is this: the numbers speak for themselves, and the numbers have spoken. And Disney listened to them because they're a corporation. And believe it or not, no matter what you want to think, because of the Marxist bologna sausage that they spill into the world through everything that they produce and everything that they're doing to their theme parks and everything that the Story Matters group is putting out there into the world, at the end of the day, they're a business. And in order to keep investors happy, they have to make money and they have to keep that stock price elevated. And neither of those things are working out real well right now. Does Disney make money? Sure. Do they make a profit? Yeah. Is it what it should be in order to basically justify that they are fulfilling their fiduciary duty to stockholders? Absolutely not. And anybody worth their salt that can take them to the wall on this, well, Disney would be hard pressed to defend their actions and their decisions over the course of the last decade, maybe even longer. Anyway, I've talked long enough and I've obviously proven my point. Numbers speak for themselves, and the numbers are not in the Acolyte's favor. So, Acolyte season two, it would be irresponsible to make. And honestly, the responsible decision would be to Willow this particular property. There's no reason to keep it around. It does not produce anything of merit, of note. And if anything, it actually does brand damage. It would be less damaging to remove it, except for a few handful of very vocal people that may make it a little rough for Disney off the bat. But with enough greased palms across the trades, I think this could go away rather quickly. And let's just be fair. You can get the story to change with enough money, depending upon who you talk to. At least it seems anyway. On that note, as I said, what do you think? Give me your thoughts down below. Let me know the case for keeping the show around. Let me know the case for making it willowed or Heinerschneided or any of the other terms that we've come up with the things that are obviously driven by messaging that have ultimately collapsed. Because I'm interested. On that note, be sure that you're still subscribed. I just reached an incredible milestone of 25,000 subscribers. Thank you very much. Let's see if we can get it to be even more. If you're one of the 68% of people watching this video right now, believe it or not, and you're not subscribed, you know what? Click the subscribe button. It's absolutely free. And you can also turn on all the notifications. You won't miss anything. I do at least one video per day, sometimes as many as three. And I also do a live stream every single day, and barring illness or something like that. I also have an incredible members community with almost 1,000 members now, courtesy of all of the generosity of the people that are part of my channel, part of my community, part of my fellowship, part of my sphere. Join my sphere. On that note, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, wash your hands because it's good hygiene. And until next time, see ya.